So, in today's video, I want to talk about this feeling that life as we know it right now just feels like one long chain of distractions, basically. When you just look at how our lives are structured, you wake up, you go to work, you come home, you recover from work just so you can, go back again the next day and do it all over again. And between that, you're constantly filling the gaps with something. And that's all. It's basically how, I guess everyone does it. It's just second nature to us, just constantly keeping something to run after in front of ourselves. Whether it's your phone, social media, TV shows that you're looking forward to, food, conversations, goals, plans, anything that kind of just keeps you moving forward without ever really having to stop. And when you compare that to any other living thing, or maybe how we lived ourselves in the past, it's just starts to look less like a natural way of living and more something like we've built on top of that to keep us occupied, right? And it all boils down to this. If you look around, right, the spaces we move through, the cities, the stores, the apps, the capitalism, even the way, I guess that already does the job, but even the way free time is structured, it all just kind of revolves around just keeping you occupied and keeping you just functional enough to continue participating in that loop, right? Somewhere to be, something to do, something to, work on, fix, something to chase, whatever it is for the individual. But it basically all boils down to the same thing for me. And that's all just supposed to feel normal because everybody does it and you grow up inside of it. So, there's nothing really to compare it to, and there's nothing else really outside of this way of doing things, right? And you may not question it, you may, or you just assume, this is what life is supposed to feel like. But I feel like we're at a point now where something has kind of shifted permanently, and for at least for the people that have that aren't already seeing it that way, right? That already realized a while ago how repetitive everything is, how predictable everything is, how a lot of things that feel important are kind of not. They're just kind of keeping, the whole society loop going. But I feel like especially after the whole COVID period, a lot of people who, otherwise would have never seen behind the curtains, so to speak, they had that moment where things kind of paused or at least changed enough to break the illusion for a second at least. And then everything went back to normal. But I feel like a lot of people didn't fully go back with it. It's like some things stayed, and you saw a version of things that now you can't completely forget again. You saw how things that that were so used to feel so absolute and important change overnight, right? And suddenly all the rules and the reasons why things are the way they are were all thrown overboard, and we rapidly implemented huge changes that impacted every single one of us, mostly in negative ways. But what I mean is, like, it was such a perfect example of how quickly and urgently we can change if we want to. How what we're doing is literally a choice that we just wake up to every day, right? We just every day we all collectively just choose to, keep the same like hamster wheel going, right? And that period just collectively broke that sense of, this is just how things are, because suddenly rules that felt completely fixed were gone overnight, right? Entire systems adjusted instantly, and you basically saw how fragile and constructed all of it actually is, and how impermanent and like changeable in literally overnight, right? And so now we're kind of back in our normal life. Well, if you consider this normal, I don't know, but like doing the same things as before, basically. But there's this layer in the background now where you were aware of the structure while you were inside of it, right? So again, you go to work, and but now you're not full immersed, right? You're just like it's that sense of like, what are we actually doing here? And you go out, and part of you is observing the whole thing from the outside at the same time. And even things that are supposed to be enjoyable start to feel off because you can see how they function. you can see what their purpose is and how they're built to give you just enough stimulation to keep going, and you still engage with them, you still watch things and set goals and scroll and plan and all of that, but it feels different when you can see what role it plays ultimately. And I guess no matter if it's a result of everything that happened the last years, or if it's something that you've been carrying around for longer, because for me, I feel like I've had that feeling or awareness or whatever you want to call it for a while. It just always changes how I talk about it and how I describe it, and you can describe it from a lot of different angles, but it basically just boils down to the same thing. But ultimately, what sucks about it is that this awareness doesn't actually get you out of anything, right? Because you're still here. You still need money, you still need structure, you still need to, you're still just a little human in the hamster wheel, right? Getting groceries and paying your bills and brushing your teeth and caring for your physical body and trying to, care for your mental health and trying to like sustain whatever for whatever reason, right? Because otherwise you're just sitting there with all this knowledge, with everything, with your thoughts, with time passing, with that underlying sense that none of this is stable or guaranteed in any way. So you end up in this position where you're fully aware of what all of this is, and you still go back to it anyway because there really isn't anything else to land on. Like there's no clear alternative waiting on the other side of that realization. There's just less separation from it. And it's also pretty isolating because, have you ever tried talking about things like this to other people? It'll usually, if you can't find, a very specific niche of people who get it, it's really not a good conversation starter, I guess. You can also shift this into something even more fundamental, I guess, because then it's not just about society or routines anymore. It's about what's underneath of all of that, which is just existence itself, right? Being conscious, time moving forward, whether you like it or not, things changing, things ending, and the constant decay of anything that's not constantly tended to, and having to somehow sit with that. And the fact that is something that I found interesting, forever as well, is that nobody really ever talks about things like that. Like, I feel like it's such a fundamental part of our experience here. That's everything that's just kind of being collectively, just not talked about. It's not something that I ever, obviously you would never like learn that in school to question anything, but like, well, you know what? I went into that specific part in another video better than I could probably talk about it now. So I'll actually just link that in the description. But I notice this with myself all the time, especially how my brain works, where there's this constant need for input and for something to engage with, something to focus on, because just like what else are you gonna do? And in a way, to me, that's exactly what depression is. When no matter what I do, it does not distract me from the void. And in those phases where I do better, the only difference basically is that the distractions work. And that you can, for a while, return to your little daily routines and goals and whatever gets the job done, ultimately, of passing the time. And when I look around, it feels like everyone is doing some version of that, constantly moving from one thing to the next and keeping themselves occupied, rarely just sitting still without reacting for something, reaching for something is what I meant to say. And I don't want to say that in a judgmental way, because I'm doing the exact same thing. I don't have some solution to this either. I'm just like describing what it feels like inside of my own head. So now I'm kind of stuck in this place where I can see these different layers and the daily routines and the systems and everything, and also that deeper, like more existential layer, I guess. But at the same time, I don't really see a way out of it, because the alternative isn't some peaceful state where everything suddenly makes sense. It just feels like you're removing the things that were carrying you through the day without replacing them with anything. And that shift from just being inside your life to kind of just standing next to it and watching yourself and everything kind of playing out while it's still happening, while you're still participating in it every single day, that's something I haven't really figured out how to deal with yet, and I hope I kind of put that in any words that are somewhat relatable. I don't know, and see if someone else knows what I'm talking about.